Hello, this is going to be a bit of a long video, so if you don't have the time to watch it right now, maybe just read what I've written below and come back to it at another time. I wanted to give an update for everyone. I've been receiving so many beautiful messages and I just haven't been able to get back to everyone because one, I'm very overwhelmed and tired. But also I've been having a lot of trouble with my vision, and I've had a lot of blurry vision, or like almost kind of dyslexia where letters kind of jumble around. I also just wanted to address that I tend to push people away when I'm going through a hard time, and especially when it has to do with my health, because I feel kind of embarrassed in a way. I feel embarrassed that I'm having health issues, and I think because I feel like it means there must be something wrong with me. I've had ongoing health issues, for as long as I can remember, and it's shown up in a lot of different ways, and it feels really confusing to me to feel okay mentally and emotionally and spiritually, and to be having my body just continually crying out with all these issues. But the truth of the matter is, like, I'm in need of support and love, and this has been kind of a very scary and confusing and frustrating process for me, and it's kind of forced me to, instead of just like closing up and shutting everyone out, like that's not even really been an option this time. Like, I've needed help, and I've had so many people step in to pick up prescriptions and translate for me and give me rides places and help supervise me, because there's been a lot of time in the past couple weeks where I've just not felt safe to be alone. So first of all, thank you for that. And please be patient with me as I'm learning to ask for help and to accept help. I was sitting at a cafe and there was nothing really too unusual about my day. And as I was sitting down, suddenly my heart started racing. Like, it felt like it was gonna fall out of my chest. And I started to feel really dizzy, like I was gonna pass out. I felt like if I didn't focus on not passing out, then I would pass out. And I immediately was just like, focusing on taking big breaths and just feeling like, whatever this is, it's just gonna pass. Over the course of an hour, I was just sitting there, and it started getting worse and worse. My whole body was shaking. I was like just sitting there shaking. I couldn't stand up or like raise my hand. I started to become unable to talk, could only speak very slowly and few words, and I became very just disoriented. I felt like my brain was not matching what I was seeing, and I would look at things but I didn't understand what I was looking at. And my vision just got really distorted and blurry, and I had like ringing in my ears, and like all these really intense things, and it felt like I was like having a heart attack, or I was having a stroke, or I didn't know. I've never experienced anything like this before, and no matter how much I tried to calm myself, like it just was getting away from me more and more and more. And eventually the staff called 911, and I had an ambulance take me to the hospital. They didn't do any tests. They just sent me home with a prescription for Prozac, which I did not take. And they just told me I drank too much coffee, which I just had 1 cup that day. It's kind of overwhelming to recount it all, but it was just like this very intense, weird feeling, like my brain was shutting down and my body was shutting down and everything was shutting down. The only thing I didn't experience is I never felt like I couldn't breathe, I felt like I could breathe the whole time, and I was taking big, deep breaths the whole time. I think what added to that is being by myself in a foreign country, not knowing what's happening, never having experienced this before, and not speaking the language as well as I would like to. So it was just very, very overwhelming and scary. Having gone to the hospital and then just being told I had too much coffee was obviously disappointing. But I was feeling not better, but I wasn't in that peak of I just call them episodes, but I wasn't in the peak anymore. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just go and be with my friend. I still felt very strange, like I couldn't connect cognitively, and it was still kind of hard to talk, and I felt very confused and dizzy and just weird, like all of these things I've never felt before. I went to a doctor the next day or 2 days later, as soon as I could. I had a really great doctor, and he immediately had me scheduled for like all of these tests, like a brain scan to test for strokes, and a heart scan to test for heart attack, and blood work to see if there's an infection, to see if my sepsis maybe didn't resolve itself, because I never had any follow-up appointments after sepsis. The doctor's still feeling very weird. I never came back to normal. I was still for about a week feeling like I can't do anything. I'm unable to like hold a normal conversation or accomplish basic tasks like doing the dishes. And before I could get all of the testing done, I was back in the hospital because I had another episode. I was just laying in bed ready to sleep, wasn't even thinking about anything alarming, and then all of a sudden, next thing I know, my heart starts racing again, and I'm like, I don't understand why my heart's racing, because I'm not stressed, I'm not scared. Why is my heart suddenly panicking? So I called my friend, who's also my neighbor. She came down and just sat with me for a while, and I was just shaking and crying, and my heart was racing. I felt very confused and dizzy and just bad. I don't know how else to put it. Like, it just feels like if I don't hold on to my life, I'm going to die. And eventually I felt like, okay, maybe, it hasn't gotten worse now. It's been like 45 minutes. It's staying here, but it's not getting worse. So, maybe I can just sleep it off. And so I went and laid down, and about 45 minutes later, it did get much worse. And I called her back down, and my whole body just felt uncomfortable and like it's caving in on itself, and my mind is shutting down. I ended up going to the hospital, where I stayed overnight. They did a bunch of testing, and still with all of the tests, didn't really come up with any answers. At that point, they did a brain scan and a heart scan, and they could tell my heart was stressed, and I have had really high blood pressure sustained for a long time since the first incident happened. And by the time I left, about 12 hours later, I didn't feel better. I left because there was kind of nothing more they could do for me, and they never gave me any kind of medication or anything. They just did a bunch of testing and then sent me home. And for that whole next night, I was staying with a friend again, and I just felt like just terrible. I don't know how, there's no words to express what the symptoms are like, but it just feels like I am falling apart. Like physically, it feels like my body is just shutting down. Like parts of me were going numb, and pins and needles and tingling and ringing in my ear. And I didn't understand why it was happening, because I felt in my mind, I felt calm. I ended up having people with me 24/7, because every time it happened, there wasn't always an opportunity for me to call someone because of how much my body would shut down, which was obviously terrifying. So I ended up having a friend even come out to stay with me for a week, and things were kind of getting better and better, and like still no answers, still no understanding, but I was having less episodes. Yesterday was one of the best days I had had. The last couple of days were some of the best days I had had. I felt very, again, not normal, but more capable, and I was able to like do my dishes. Other than that, I haven't been able to like ride my scooter for the past couple weeks, go to the store by myself, really go anywhere. But I have been on my own for the last couple days, which I hadn't been before that. But then last night I had another episode, and I was just again laying in bed, ready to go to sleep, not really thinking about anything. And then it just hit me, and it starts with just like my heart suddenly racing. And I'm like, why is it suddenly racing? I'm not doing anything. I'm not thinking anything. At this point, I've been on a beta blocker medication because my blood pressure has been really high in like a hypertensive state. And so I've been on medication to keep my heart safe because it had been showing a lot of stress. And then other than that, I have hydroxyzine, which is like anxiety reducer, or kind of a sedative is what it's also used for. And so I've been taking that sparingly, but I ended up taking some last night just so I could, just take all the symptoms down a big notch. And I had the episode for about 2 hours. I had a friend on standby, but I decided like I wanted to just see if it's something I could get through without needing to go to the hospital every time, because they're not even doing anything for me at the hospital. They're just waiting it out with me. So a lot of the doctors have speculated that I'm possibly having panic attacks, which is something I've never experienced before. And it's possible, but the big question mark is that panic attacks are supposed to last up to 30 minutes and then go back to normal, and then maybe have 1 week later. But I've been having kind of a constant state of panic in my body for over 2 weeks now. And the only thing that's kind of keeping it down is these medications that I'm taking. And also it's just unusual for me. I'm not an anxious person. I don't feel panicked. I don't understand why I'd be feeling that way, but there is this thing called post-sepsis syndrome, and it's basically your body's delayed reaction to the stress that it underwent when it was going through sepsis. So it's kind of like your body is so focused on healing itself during sepsis that it didn't respond, it didn't react, and so then some people experience reactions later on, which is at this point the only thing I can really understand. Obviously it's very confusing, it's very frustrating, it's terrifying. It's very hard for me as an independent person who is used to having a very packed social life and leading events and going out and about every day, and suddenly being home 24/7, not able to do anything, barely able to work, which I wasn't able to for a while. Now I'm finally like, just the fact that I'm able to talk this much is good. But it's like even on my best days, I'll have a really good day and then I'll go to sleep that evening and it'll happen. So it's hard to trust that I'm okay when it just kind of happens out of the blue. Right now, we're still working on getting results for the possibility that it's something with my adrenal glands, which would make sense, but there's still just a lot of unanswered questions, and we're kind of running out of things to test. And so I've actually decided to go back to Austin starting November 11th for the foreseeable future. Just really feel like I want to be around my community, and not that I haven't built an amazing community here, but I just feel like a lot, as normal as I can make my life right now, the better. Lastly, if you've stuck with me this far, thank you. I know I'm talking slow and I'm rambling, and I don't really have a way around that right now, so I'm sorry. But lastly, I have decided to set up a GoFundMe account. I'm still paying off debt from being in the hospital this summer, from having sepsis. And then my debt just doubled with this last kind of set of testing and hospitalization. And here they do it where like they don't give you a bill, they just charge you. Like they just take, so for in this case they just charged my credit card. And yeah, so I'm currently, just for sepsis and sepsis related medical bills, or I'm considering these sepsis related because it's so currently the only real explanation. And right now I'm at about $13,000, which is actually very low considering I don't have insurance. And in the US, I was going to be paying about $60,000, $50,000, but because I am uninsured, they actually brought it all down to about $5,000 or $6,000, which is a whole other story. I feel really terrible and awkward asking for money and asking for financial help, but that's also something that I need help with right now. And again, a lot of my pride kind of gets in the way, and I don't want to ask for help, and I want to figure it out on my own. But I also understand the beauty of community, and that we all kind of have different things to offer each other. And so if money is something you have that you can offer to me, obviously I'd be forever grateful. And if there's any way I can pay you back or do something to earn it, like I'd be happy to once I'm able. And if money is not something you can give, of course I don't expect it from anybody. And I just really appreciate all the other forms of support that I've been receiving in so many ways. And so yeah, if you don't mind just looking at the GoFundMe and or sharing it, I would really appreciate that. Right now I put my goal for $15,000 because I'm still actively going to appointments and testing, and there's also some other receipts I haven't found that I need to kind of add to the tally. But also I have, my bank statements, I have my bills, and I'm happy to share them with you. But my last tally was, $12,977. So, yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for your love and support. And I will try to update more when I can.